In this particular video session, what we're going to focus on is or are the solutions to market failure. Okay? So in previous video sessions, we looked at the causes of market failure, and due to the fact that markets can fail, we need to find different ways and means of preventing it from occurring, or if it has occurred, to reduce the impacts or correct that market from its failure. In this particular diagram, we again revisit our example of education. Education provides a positive externality, and what we're saying is that that positive externality causes the difference between the marginal private benefit that is incurred by an individual as opposed to the marginal social benefit that could be enjoyed by society. And as we said before, the more people that are educated is the more that society may benefit from reduced criminal behavior. So our goal would be to get demand for education to be on this curve, the marginal social benefit curve. We want society to operate on this demand curve as opposed to this demand curve, the one closer to the left. At current, what we're seeing in this example is that demand for education is at an equilibrium quantity of 16 individuals, but we want approximately 20 individuals to demand education, tertiary education. So what we're saying, therefore, is that we have to find some way to cause individuals to consume upon this demand curve. How this could be done is via utilization of taxes. Now, we realize that if demand is to exist on this demand curve, the purple demand curve, the price of education would be approximately 25,000. It therefore means that it is more expensive. The only way we can get individuals to consume education that may be more expensive is if their disposable income raises. This can occur if the state was to decrease or reduce personal income tax. With a reduction in personal income tax, it can encourage individuals to demand more school education simply because they have the income to do so. Alternatively, another solution would be to provide a subsidy to buyers. All right, if a subsidy is provided, it means that the buyers could have additional income to directly acquire tertiary education, and also via direct provision, which is that the state can be or begin providing tertiary education either at a reduced cost or no cost at all. So these are three probable solutions that can allow for a positive externality to be internalized. That is, to cause society to operate on the marginal social benefit curve, which is the demand curve to the right, as opposed to operating on the marginal private benefit curve. So this is positive. So this is possible, via a reduction in personal income tax, subsidies being provided to buyers, and direct provision, meaning whatever good provides a positive external benefit, the government can step in and begin to provide that commodity. With regards to combating external costs or negative externalities, what we can look at is our example with regards to the firm dumping waste in the river. This firm is operating on their marginal private cost curve, simply because they do not bear or maybe even aware of the costs that they are inflicting upon others, which will be on their marginal social cost curve. So because the firm is operating on the marginal private cost at equilibrium between the demand curve for fertilizer and the supply curve on the marginal private cost curve, the equilibrium price is 15. What we're saying, therefore, is that this equilibrium quantity of approximately 26 or 27 pounds of fertilizer is too much because it is negatively impacting the water table. What we want is a lower equilibrium quantity, and therefore we have to find a way to get firms to internalize all costs, private and external, and therefore cause them to operate at a higher price, equilibrium price, and a lower equilibrium quantity. One way we can do that is to impose taxes upon firms that dump or pollute, to impose taxes on the products that they create, or even impose fines upon these firms. Secondly, legislation can be introduced to limit the production of a particular commodity that has a negative externality upon society. In this way, if a tax is imposed, supply would fall, it would shift to the left, moving from the marginal private cost curve to the marginal social cost curve. There's a shift to the left, or directly limiting production will also result in the supply curve being further to the left with a lower quantity being supplied to the market. So far we have discussed solutions for external benefits and external costs. How can we combat public goods and merit goods and demerit goods? Remember, public goods are those goods that will not be provided for by the private sector but are actually in demand by the public. People want these goods, but because of non-excludability and non-diminishability, private firms will not provide. Well, the only option is that the state must step in. The state must intervene and provide these public goods. So we see here direct provision is the only solution for the provision of public goods. Remember, the market fails when public goods are not provided by the private sector. So the only option is that the state has to bear that cost of building roads, providing streetlights, and other public amenities to the citizens of a country. Remember, with regards to a merit good is a good that is being provided for by the private sector, but not enough. Not enough is being provided. So, what can be done? Again, we can see that the government can step in. The government can step in and provide merit goods. So we spoke about education before, and even security, whereby private firms provide some level of security and some level of education via schools, and even some measure of healthcare, but not enough. So therefore the government can actually step in directly and provide these services by directly employing doctors, by building hospitals, by building schools and employing individuals, and therefore the government will now bear the cost of providing. Okay, I think there's an error here. Let me just correct it. Lovely. So we see here that the government will bear the cost of providing education, national defense, and healthcare because the private firms are not providing enough. So that's a possible solution. Another possible solution for merit goods will even to provide subsidies to firms to encourage them to increase their supply of these goods that are needed by the public but are not being provided by insufficient quantities by the private sector. With regards to demerit goods, remember demerit goods are goods that have negative externalities on societies and therefore too much is being produced. So what the government can do, the government can impose indirect taxes upon goods such as alcohol and cigarettes, right? And via these indirect taxes being imposed upon specific commodities, it can result in those commodities alone experiencing an increase in price and therefore with the hopes of reducing consumption by individuals. So, if indirect taxes are imposed upon alcohol and cigarettes, the hope is that individuals in society would consume less because now these goods will be high in price. So these are some of the solutions that can be applied to combat issues such as public goods, merit goods, demerit goods, looking at positive externalities and also negative externalities. So I hope this particular video session and the entire series upon market failures was clear and understandable to all. Thank you.